I started out my law firm, funny enough, with a community of Etsy store owners. So grandmas on Etsy were my first set of clients that I was working with. And I mean, they were the best first clients I could ask for because they really helped me see that this quality that I have of being what they would call like the cute nephew who comes over to fix the printer. They're like, no, that is what I want in an attorney. I don't want some shark. So a big part of my journey was figuring out, okay, how can I practice law in a way that really aligns with my strengths and my personality traits?
One of the things that's very, very important for a lot of businesses are trademarks. In fact, there are probably about 500,000 trademarks that get filed every year. Now, the challenge for business owners is that you don't know what you don't know about trademarks, and no one ever wants to put their business at risk. So we decided to bring on an amazing lawyer that does a lot of great help for businesses and really helping them understand what they don't know so that their business can be protected. So without further ado, let me bring on my guest, Joey D. Welcome to the show, Joey.
Hey, everybody. Man, Terrell, you are running a cool ship. That intro video was awesome.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I do appreciate, the opportunity, like I said, to create a platform that has some quality to it, to where we bring on great guests to be able to share their story and the insights. I mean, and now before I guess we jump into the details of like trademarks, tell us a little bit about, Joey V and Joey V's background.
Sure. So one of the shortest ways I can say this is I am an owner of a law firm, and yet I am a god-awful courtroom attorney. I say that because, and for all of you lawyers who are listening, you can probably relate to this. When you go to law school, especially if you don't know what you want to do in terms of a certain specialty, law schools tend to just kind of guide you in the direction of litigation. That's where a lot of the big jobs are. As it's harder to find a job, more and more people are trying to compete where there's availability. And I remember the first couple of years of being a lawyer, realizing how much I really don't like conflict, especially conflict where people are paying a lot of money, and usually like the right fair answer is somewhere in between these two opposing, really upset parties. And so after spending a good 2 to 3 years trying to overcome that, weakness that I saw in myself, I realized that there was a real superpower that I wasn't leaning into when I was trying to be a better courtroom attorney, which is what, you and I both do, Terrell, of doing the proactive work of keeping people out of a courtroom or some other bad place to begin with. And I started out my law firm, funny enough, with a community of Etsy store owners. So grandmas on Etsy were my first set of clients that I was working with. And I mean, they were the best first clients I could ask for because they really helped me see that this quality that I have of being what they would call like the cute nephew who comes over to fix the printer. They're like, no, that is what I want in an attorney. I don't want some shark. So a big part of my journey was figuring out, okay, how can I practice law in a way that really aligns with my strengths and my personality traits? And then after a year or so of having my law firm, wanting to help people to the extent that they would come to me asking for help, slowly but surely after that first year, I realized, okay, what is it that we can really do to help people? Because when I started, it was almost like I had like a drive-through McDonald's version of a law firm where people would pull up, say, hey, like I want this type of contract, I want this type of LLC, and I would just give them the legal stuff that they asked for. And it wasn't until about a year or the 2-year mark that we realized that out of all of the things that were on that menu, people weren't really asking for trademarks until they become emergencies.
Mhm.
So at that point, we pivoted, and now Indie Law is a trademarks only law firm.
Gotcha. Gotcha. No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, because I do think that it is very interesting and refreshing to hear the stories of so many entrepreneurs and so many business owners that is like, hey, I started this way because, hey, this is how I knew how to make money in what I was
Mhm.
doing. But then eventually I gravitated more to like, how do I want to show up in this space? Like,
Yeah.
I still want to be a little, I still want to work in the legal field, but this is how I want to approach it. So how was that? I mean, that transition, because like you said, I mean, in law school, you were probably geared and pushed more towards litigation. Was there a lot of like, kind of an emotional turn for you of having that internal conflict of like, that's not who I am? I mean,
Yeah.
how was that journey?
I mean, it's what comes to mind is, when I told my dad that I wanted to build a law firm that looks like the way it does, it was almost as if my dad's son was telling him that he went to law school but wasn't going to be a real lawyer, you know? And so I was lucky enough to have certain people around me that were mentors that were already, I'm not the first person to have a trademark only law firm or to work with the types of creative online business clients that I work with. So I saw that it could be done. But there were people in my immediate family and friend network and my wife who were understandably a little worried, like, Joey, is this really a thing that you can do and make a good living off of?
I think that is very interesting. I mean, because it's one of those things, like you said, when you, I guess you say, step out of the normal to focus on
Mhm.
like, hey, this is who I am. This is who I'm here to serve. It can be scary to a lot of people because they're like, hey, I haven't seen that work before.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like as you kind of traveled that journey. I mean, being a person who like, hey, I'm gonna go a non-traditional route in an industry that kind of already has like a game plan that they kind of hand you.
Mhm.
So as you started to unfold that, like, what was that journey like for you of being able to connect with, your target audience? Because as we talked beforehand, when it comes down to trademarks, not everyone realizes that they need help when it comes to
Mhm.
trademarks. They're like, oh, I can just do it cheaper. I can do it myself. So how did you start to connect with, your target audience for your services?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I will say that uh, if you're in a practice area, or if you have any type of a business where uh, people aren't exactly knocking down doors to get help, like basically, if you're not helping people get a six pack or make more money or whatever it is, marketing is going to be tough. And the more that you're trying to help people solve a problem proactively, the harder it is to figure out effective marketing for yourself. And so over the past few years, my team and I have gotten really good at marketing, not because we're just naturally amazing at it, but because we had to experiment a lot and double down on what was working. And in the trademark space specifically, like you said, a lot of people just don't know what they don't know. So what works really well for us now is a combination of, I would say, two things. One is uh, education at the ground level. One of the biggest mistakes that I see attorneys making, especially when it comes to proactive areas of the law, is we keep our legal hats on and we start talking on Instagram or TikTok or wherever at a like 201 law level, and people have no idea what we're talking about. Like I could talk about intent to use 1B applications, you're not going to know what I'm talking about. But if I say things like last year, over 500,000 trademark applications were filed, and most of them actually got denied. Now people are like, wait, what? Because I thought a trademark was just like getting an LLC or a domain name. You just file for something and you get it. And so it's what are those, especially when it's like trademarks where people kind of understand what it is. Like they know that there's the symbols that you can put after the word or the logo. They know you can file for it, but there's a lot of misunderstandings. So what can we do to speak to those misunderstandings at the level that they're currently at, and couple that with the social proof of testimonials, reviews, referral partners that we're working with, so that we're doing a combination of visibility to a colder audience and helping build that trust with a growing group of super fans who are doing that hard work of marketing for us by saying, okay, you don't need to know about trademarks, but I trust Joey, so should you.
Wow. I love it. I mean, because it's one of those things that, as you and I were talking about, I mean, beforehand, is, you know, I feel like our approach is there's a lot of similarities in the fact of, hey, we don't have the luxury of just going after the mass, because when you're working, you're helping someone with something proactive, the shock value goes down, because it's like, I'm proactively helping you. So this isn't a problem for you yet, but it could be a problem if you don't do X, Y, Z. And for the average person, they're kind of like, well, I'll deal with that when that happens. It's just like, okay, all right,
And
it's gonna be a little
I get
steep.
it. And as a lawyer, again, what I'm always trying to do is think about, okay, at the end of the day, am helping my clients with risk management, putting my advisor hat on. What are the risks that we need to manage for? What are the risks that we need to manage that they don't currently have in place? So I'm a huge fan of thinking about business integrity or brand integrity, and where is your business in and out of integrity? Meaning, like, not like, do you ethically have integrity, but like, does like StreamYard right now have integrity? Like, is it working how it's supposed to? And if you do not have trademarks locked in for your brand, whether it's the name of your business, the name of an online course, slogan, logo, even the name of a series of a show like this, if you don't have the trademark secured at a national level, you do not own these brand elements. You're out of integrity, and you could accidentally be infringing on somebody else, which is becoming more and more possible now that so many people are filing trademarks.
Wow. Wow. I mean, it's one of those interesting things, like I said, a lot of businesses don't necessarily think about. So I'm curious as to, when you're talking with, let's say you have a client that is, now they've reached out to you and they're like, hey, I don't know what I don't know in this area, but hey, I feel like I need to have a conversation with you. How do you usually start to help them, navigate that journey of, hey, here are the areas where we possibly will need to step in and help, or help you understand to make sure you're protected?
Yeah, well, my team does do free calls with anybody who's interested to see if they'd be a good fit, to do a little bit of an audit during that call of, if they have a business name and a slogan and a podcast and a course, which one we should prioritize first, either because it's like their main kind of brand identifier, their audience knows them from that version of their brand element, or because they just really love that, they don't want to lose it. And a typical rebrand for a small business owner costs usually more than like $20,000, $30,000. So we would like to think of trademarks as brand insurance. And then we understand that not everybody can work with us directly. So the bigger we get, and we've filed for almost 500 trademarks at this point, where we're getting more and more people who just aren't able or willing to make the budget to work with us yet, which we get. To your point earlier, there's a lot of risks out there that you're wanting to assess, and legal and trademark specifically might not be the number one thing that you want to plan for. But for anybody who the timing isn't right budget-wise, we also have a standalone DIY course on trademarks that has hundreds of students who have already gone through it. You can get through it in just under 3 hours, and it's way better than using a solution like LegalZoom or some other cheap service, because all of those really cheap trademark services, all that they do is they ask you a bunch of basic questions in a form that are the same questions that the trademark office asks on their form. And then, but it's prettier to fill out. And then they copy and paste it and they send it on over. And usually those have some type of an error and you have to pay more to fix things. And so I like to tell, again, clients who aren't ready or are able to work with us because of budget issues that trademarks are difficult, but they're not rocket science. So if you can't afford, a couple $1,000s to work with an attorney directly, this is a $500 course that you can learn trademarks and then file as many trademarks as you want. Also, there's a Facebook group that goes along with the course where you can ask my team and other course students any questions.
Now, question. So how much does a trademark cost to file?
Good question. So when you file for a trademark, even if you do it yourself and you don't use an attorney or a filing service, you're still going to have to pay anywhere from $250 to $350 or more dollars.
That's somewhere close to it's like $125 million a year in just, 125 million is around what that number ends up being. And if a percentage of that is being denied, I mean, that's money that people will never get back because, like I said, they just didn't have the right help. Like, wow, that's
so true. And in my experience, that's not really where the pain comes. The pain comes from when you're on your family vacation and you've set aside a week or 2 weeks to be totally unplugged from the business. And this happened to a client of mine. And you just happen to pull out your phone just to do a little check, hop on your mail app, and you see that someone sent you a cease and desist letter giving you 30 days to change the name of everything in your business. Wow. And now, instead of having your family time that you've been planning for and looking forward to, you're freaking out for 7 nights in a row trying to change everything.
Wow. I think that is an amazing point. Before we wrap up, there are a lot of business owners out there that are listening. Some are early stage, some are creating some very great, businesses, great products. So how can they get in touch with you if they're interested in contacting your firm and learning more about how do they protect themselves from a trademarks perspective?
Yeah. Well, go to indielaw.com. That's INDIE law. Great. It's on the screen here. And then I would go ahead and watch that video, click on the monitor, and have that be your first thing. And then as you watch that video, you'll get a better sense of how we can help, if we might be a good fit for you. If you know that you need a different type of legal thing resolved in your business, even though we do trademarks, I would encourage you to still reach out to us. Just let us know what your legal problem is. We have a pretty deep network of lawyers in different states with different areas of expertise, and I'll do whatever I can to connect you with the right lawyer that you need.
Nice. I love it. Well, Joey, thank you so much for being an amazing guest on the show. It's been a pleasure having you. And like I said, thanks again for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Law Firm and Finance Show, where we give you great content that helps you build a more successful law firm. So make sure you hit that subscribe button on all platforms and follow us for more content.